Hey everyone, I'm called Boris. I'm a nurse midwife, a registered nurse midwife, and I've been practicing as a nurse midwife in the maternity for almost 3 years now. And I also have a YouTube channel by the name Boris the Midwife, where I get to educate women and the general population about midwifery. Midwifery simply entails the sexual and reproductive health of women, labor, delivery, and the newborn care. So before we move to today's topic, I want to start by thanking Matty, the innovative midwife, for giving me this opportunity. I call this an opportunity because I get to learn and I also get to share my knowledge with you all. So, what are STIs? First of all, the full meaning of STI is sexually transmitted infection. They can also be called STD or STDs. STD is a sexually transmitted disease. So it basically means the same thing with an STI. So basically, an STI is an infection that can be transmitted through sexual contact. And this infection can either be caused by a bacteria, virus, or a parasite. So guys, this is what STIs are basically all about. So in today's topic, in this WhatsApp forum, I'll be talking to you all about 8 common STIs. So the first STI we're talking about today is the human papillomavirus. This is commonly called HPV. So just from the name human papillomavirus, you can tell that this STI is caused by a virus. And the most common medium of transmission of the HPV is sexual intercourse. That's unprotected sexual intercourse. This can be through unprotected anal sex, vaginal sex, or oral sex. And the most common symptom of the human papillomavirus is genital warts. That is, you can actually find warts on the genitals of the infected person. It can either be on the penis of an infected person or on the vagina of the infected person. And there's an important aspect that you need to be aware about when it comes to the human papillomavirus. You need to be aware that this virus has no cure. It can only be treated. That's why vaccines have been introduced that are being given to young girls beginning from the age of 9. That's because the human papillomavirus can eventually cause a cervical cancer. Now let's move to the second STI for today. The second STI I'll be talking about is chlamydia. Chlamydia is a sexually transmitted infection. It can be gotten through unprotected sexual intercourse, that's through anal sex, vaginal sex, or oral sex. And it can also be transmitted through infected genital fluids. That's, you don't need to have penetrative sex before you have chlamydia. If the infected genital fluids of an infected person comes in contact with you, you can develop chlamydia. And chlamydia, just like HPV, can be transmitted from a mother to a child during childbirth if proper measures are not being taken. So the most common symptom of chlamydia in males, for example, is painful urination and testicular pains. And for females, we have abundant smelly discharges. You can have yellowish and greenish discharges in females. And you can have persistent lower abdominal pains and waist pains. So these are the common symptoms of chlamydia in males and females. But the good thing about chlamydia is that it can be totally cured. Yes, it's curable. Now moving on to the third STI. The third STI is gonorrhea. Gonorrhea is a sexually transmitted infection, of course, and is caused by a bacteria known as Neisseria gonorrhea. This STI can be transmitted through unprotected oral sex, anal sex, and vaginal sex. And the most common symptoms of gonorrhea is painful urination. That's for both males and females. And females can also experience abundant vaginal smelly discharges. And males can experience purse-like discharges during urination. Now moving on to the fourth STI that we're talking about is syphilis. Syphilis is an STI caused by a bacteria known as Treponema pallidum. This bacteria is very deadly. Syphilis, because syphilis is in stages. So the most common symptom of syphilis in the primary stage is those tiny, shiny lesions. These lesions can occur around your mouth, your vagina, that's your vagina, your labias, or the vaginal lips, or it can also occur around the anal region. And the secondary stage of syphilis, you often have no symptoms, but the tertiary stage, which is the last stage of syphilis, or the late stage of syphilis, that's where you start experiencing cardiovascular infections, neurological infections, and you can experience lumps or lesions internally, that's in your internal organs. So syphilis can be life-threatening. That's why I say this bacteria is deadly. That's the bacteria that causes syphilis. It can kill if it's left untreated for a long time. And the fifth STI I'll be talking about today is what's that again? The fifth STI is going to be the genital herpes. Yes, genital herpes is an STI that is caused by the herpes simplex virus. Just from the name, herpes simplex virus is an STI caused by a virus. And most of these viral STIs, they have no cure. Yes, genital herpes has no cure. It can only be treated, and no vaccine has been produced yet. So the mediums of transmission is unprotected sexual intercourse, and the most common symptoms are blisters, burns, so there's painful sensations, and swelling around the infected area. And now let's move to the sixth infection. That's the sixth STI, which is trichomoniasis. Trichomoniasis is a parasitic infection. Trichomoniasis can be gotten through unprotected sexual intercourse, anal sex, vaginal sex, or oral sex. So that is the medium of transmission for trichomoniasis. And the most common symptom of trichomoniasis for both males and females is fishy, smelly discharges. That's discharges from the genital areas. So this is a very common symptom for trichomoniasis. But trichomoniasis is totally curable. And the seventh STI we're talking about today is hepatitis B. Hepatitis B is caused by the hepatitis B virus, and it can be gotten through unprotected sexual intercourse. And even the body fluids of an infected person, if they get in contact with you, you can get hepatitis B. And the good thing about hepatitis B is that it has a vaccine. It cannot be cured, but it has a vaccine, so it's totally preventable. It has a vaccine, so you need to get vaccinated. You take about 3 shots of the vaccine at different time periods, which can cover you for about 10 to 15 years. And the most common symptoms of hepatitis B are vomiting and persistent abdominal pains. And the last but not the least STI I'm talking about today is HIV. HIV is caused by the human immunodeficiency virus. When an individual is exposed to HIV, they can start manifesting flu-like symptoms, as symptoms like catarrh, of course, from about the 2nd or 6th week. So HIV, is in stages. So it is very important for this infection to be diagnosed earlier, because the first stage, which is HIV, is totally treatable and manageable. But when you start moving to the 3rd or the 4th stage, that's when it's AIDS. So it's very important for routine screenings to be done, and if a positive diagnosis is made, it can be treated and tackled earlier. So the most common mediums of transmission is sexual intercourse, oral sex, that's if you have sores in your mouth and you get in contact with an infected genital that also has sores and there's some mediums of blood contact or body fluids, then this can lead to an infection. Oral sex, vaginal sex, anal sex, those are mediums of transmission of HIV. So guys, the bottom line about all these infections is that most of them do not really come with symptoms when the individual is infected. They don't come with symptoms very early. Most of those symptoms that's presenting when the infection has really aggravated, when it's at a critical state. Like for syphilis, for example, sometimes you may notice the primary lesion as a tiny lesion. It comes and it goes, but it later comes again when it's already at the tertiary stage of syphilis. That's where you start experiencing cardiovascular infections, neurological infections, and so on. So it is very important for you to get screened. It's very important for you to get screened so that you know your status concerning STIs, especially when you're sexually active. It's very important to go for routine screening. That's you and your partner or you and your spouse. It's very important for you guys to go for routine screening, because it will not be very advisable if a wife, for example, goes and gets herself screened and treated for STI while the husband hasn't done the same. The wife may still get infected. So it's very important for both couples to always go and screen and get treated for these STIs if necessary. And as a midwife, we always advise couples or males and females, that's individuals, to get screened for these infections. Because the long-term effects is that these infections can cause infertility. Like in females, for example, these infections can aggravate as they can grow up to your uterine tubes, that's the fallopian tubes, and they can cause scarring in those tubes. And when they cause scarring of these tubes, it makes it very difficult for that fertilized egg to navigate itself and implant itself in the womb. So you might end up having an ectopic pregnancy, or you might end up being infertile altogether. So it may cause scarring of the fallopian tube in females, and it may cause inflammation of the epididymis in males, and it may cause testicular pains in males, and eventually leading to impotency or infertility in males. So it is very important for you guys to screen for STIs, especially if you're sexually active. Get vaccinated for those that can be vaccinated against, and stay safe and maintain preventive measures. Thank you guys for watching the video. Hope it was helpful, and I'm open to questions and solutions and suggestions. And thank you again, Marty, the innovative midwife, for giving me this opportunity. I'll be chatting with you all in the WhatsApp forum. Thank you all. I appreciate it. God bless you all.